Hold up. Yeah.
Swirl.
A very good afternoon to everyone joining us from Europe, and very good morning if you're joining us from across the Atlantic. Welcome to another episode of the CEO Night series. Today we're going to discuss cross-cultural communication in the tech world. So let me introduce myself before we continue. So my name is Andrew Wrobel, and I am the founding partner at Emerging Europe. Emerging Europe is a London-based news, community, and intelligence platform that is focused on 23 countries of Central and Eastern Europe. I am also the lead of Tech Emerging Europe Advocates, which is part of a global community of almost 20,000 advocates globally. I have a fantastic panel with me today, and I would like to ask all of them to introduce themselves briefly. So let's start with Iryna.
Good evening, everyone. So happy to share this tonight with you and on very interesting subjects, topic, whatever we can call it. So I expect a very interesting discussion. So good evening to everyone.
So Iryna is the CEO of Dell Ukraine. Is that right?
Yes, correct. So let me briefly maybe just describe why I am here today. Yes, indeed, I am now more than 2 years leading Dell Technology Group in Ukraine and West CIS cluster. But more than 20 years I'm in IT and telco. So more than 6 years I'm managing multi-regional, multicultural teams. So this topic is super, let's say, relevant to me and super interesting. So that's why let's start discussion.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Iryna. Daria, over to you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. So my name is Daria Leshchenko. I'm CEO and partner at Support Europe, a support as a service company that provides customer and technical support for many clients all over the world in 31 languages. And I'm also co-founder of Label Your Data, company that provides services for annotation data for artificial intelligence and computer vision. So thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Dasha. And Alex, our host. Alex.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my name is Alex. I'm the founder and CEO of Innovecs. Innovecs is the global software development outsourcing company. I guess for me, this topic is very interesting because I spent 20 years in the United States, last 10 years in Ukraine, and I'm definitely, this topic always comes up because there's definitely a lot of cross-communication culture gaps or not gaps. I think that would be definitely interesting to discuss and bring some insights about this topic. Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you very much. So one could argue that technology is a universal language, but it obviously also includes or involves people from various geographies with different historical backgrounds, with different experiences, speaking different languages as well. And because of all that, we might start facing certain challenges. So during today's session, what I would like to focus on is those challenges, those gaps, like Alex said, and also offer some tips and advice how to overcome those challenges in our discussions with partners, with clients from different cultures and geographies. So I'd like to start by asking one question to all of you, and this would be, about the areas where technology becomes less universal and cultures start actually playing a role? Where do you see these areas? What kind of areas do you think they are? What are the key areas here? Anyone who wants to take the first question?
If you don't mind, Andrew, let me take, but probably starting with why communication like important, why we are talking about that. So I have one of my favorite motto in, let's say, even I should say leadership and identity. This is like 3 pillars, which I normally consider as a, let's say, kind of mine, what I'm like care about when I am doing my roles or business. This is a like 3 very simple thing. Bring clarity, generate energy, and drive results. And when I'm like always looking around those pillars, communications is very, very big part of that. So let's say bringing clarity. We all living and working in the world of constant changes, with the growing extremely degree of complexity. And it is, of course, most related to IT, which is most dynamic area, and it is probably most global and multicultural industry, I should say, in the world right now. And kind of effective communication, it means a lot to deliver, let's say, sharp, crisp message to your team, big team, very diverse team, to get buy-in and to get really sharp focus for them to drive results. Second thing is generate energy, especially now. It was not easy in our past normal, but now it is even more harder because we all of us predominantly use online versus to offline versus to face-to-face communication. So it is more harder, I think, for all of us. And last but not least, drive results. Whatever results we are talking about, communication, this is a key element to deliver those results. Communication to the customer, communication within team for collaboration, communication to senior management to get buy-in or like business decision you need to drive your business. So so each area, I mean, any area you are looking in terms of aspects of business you do, this is, I think, very well connected to effective communication. So that's why answering on the question, let's say, where is like challenge for me, that's the day-by-day challenge. That's the day-by-day goal to make those communication super effective.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Daria.
Well, yeah, I'll be brief. Basically, technology plays a great role right now in our lives and in our businesses. However, interpersonal communication, I really miss, and I can't tell that technology can replace it. For instance, even just to have a morning coffee with your team right now on the kitchen, and just to feel the energy and maybe just to talk about some updates and news. So I really miss, and I think that technology can't right now fill this gap for sure.
Alex, where do you think this language of technology becomes less universal?
No, as my colleague said, definitely, I mean, in the current situation with the COVID, definitely technology helps a lot to keep communication going. But I also agree that technology doesn't replace the face-to-face interaction and the ability to make things they cannot do over technology, especially when it comes to sales. I think you can do over the technology, but it doesn't replace the way you do, let's say, face-to-face. The other thing I think for communication, and most of the time we use in our company, like how to measure the effective communication, is basically ask your cleaning lady if she knows what your company does. If she knows what your company does, it means your communication works great. And again, technology helps. And I know that even let's say when COVID is over, most of the stuff will continue to be stayed, like Zoom and stuff like that. But my personal belief, especially being a B2B business, I think technology will replace the way we can effectively sell our services to our clients.
Thank you very much for bringing the topic of sales, because that is something that I wanted to bring up at the beginning. But before we continue with sales, I would like to invite our audience to send over questions, because we want to answer your questions. We want to be as relevant to you as possible, and try to offer, like I said, some hints and some tips and advice to help you with those cultural challenges. So as far as sales are concerned, you know, even today, earlier today, literally an hour before we started the session, I got an email. I'll quote it a little bit later, because I want to relate to something else with this email. But you know, how do you see this communication in the sales process relevant? And you know, IT as a subject is a domain, is an industry where, you know, our region, and I'm talking about Central and Eastern Europe, Ukraine, are particularly strong at. And you know, those differences, cultural differences, how do they actually you know, make it difficult to sell, or do they make it difficult to sell across Europe, across the, you know, the Atlantic? What is your take on that?
Yeah, I can comment on this topic first. So
do.
basically, we sell a lot online, and it's okay for us if we haven't seen our clients. That's fine. But sometimes we really want, I know that our clients, they would love to come to our offices before the deal is closed, to meet us personally. That is why cold emails, for instance, or cold methods of selling, it's hard for sale, basically, but it's possible. The difference that we notice between the different cultures during our process of selling, I would like to mention maybe 3 of them. The first one, for instance, for me, is the easiest way of communicating with the clients from Israel, for instance. We know that when we're talking to potential clients from Israel, they are open. We know what they want, what they feel, and it feels like just right away if you are connected or not. Of course, then you probably will have some kind of negotiations about pricing and conditions, but this openness, I really love it. However, let's say if we're talking about Nordic countries, for instance, Sweden, Norway, Finland, for instance, I would say the clients that we met from those countries are neutral. We didn't know exactly what they would say to us in the end. So, and their yes or no for us usually a surprise, because they are no emotional. They just very calm, you know. So, and last, let's say, comment here. It's about our clients from the USA. I would say they are opposite, right? They are very emotional. They are very open as well. However, I can tell that their openness are the same as their willingness to buy or to start these relationships. That is why, for instance, if we had some occasions when we had clients from the USA and we were sure that they love our conditions, our company, they were very friendly and open, but eventually they said us, okay, we didn't like anything, and we were just looking for some options, and yeah, like it's how it comes. So the first impression, you do need to rely on the first impression in this let's say negotiation with potential clients. And remember that there are of course exceptions. So yeah, I'm sure that there are very open people in Nordic countries, and there are very, let's say, not emotional people in Israel and as well in the USA. But it's just from my experience.
And then it comes to the UK, where we have people who would tell you, oh, it's interesting, we'll get back to you.
I would say,
And,
for me, the UK and Germany, it's basically less neutral than countries like, as I mentioned, Sweden or Finland. But yeah, it's something between, like the USA and Nordic countries.
Okay, Alex, Iryna, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think from my side, we usually take sales and we split into 3 different categories. One is that like technical instruments, that's the given, and that's basically like, regardless of the country, you can use pretty much the same instruments. And then we go to last 2, which is we call digital marketing sales, and then offline face-to-face. I think those are 2 categories where basically the culture, understanding of the culture is very crucial, because especially today when you receive like 1,000 different emails and proposition, so you have to find, so your content should look in a way that it creates some kind of attention of potential buyer. And in this case, the culture fit, understanding of the profile of the client that you're going to be talking to become a key. For example, as my colleague just said about Israeli clients, they're very specific clients. So with the Israeli clients, sometimes in Hebrew they have a word I always use in my sales speeches, tachlis. They're not about going around different type of proposal. They want to go tachlis, means let's say no bullshit, straight to the point. Because if we do the business, tell me how much it costs, and I will say yes or no. Or let's say, what kind of service do you offer? If I need it, I'll buy them. If I don't need it, I'm not going to buy them. Don't circle around, don't go around, just be very tachlis. Okay, and so that's why when it comes to digital kind of marketing sales, right, it's very important that you understand your client, especially the client in Israel, if your client, let's say, in Asia, or your client, for example, in the US. Because even, let's say, any type of jokes also make a difference. And then when it comes to offline, which we don't do it right now, hopefully we'll do again, offline face-to-face, that's what, from my experience, let's say, being in the US, I was always taught to be able to mingle with the people, which is not very easy, because mingle means, let's say, you just go around, let's say the conference, you go around, you meet different people, you have to come up with different topic, you have to mingle, and especially in the conference, it's not only US people come from around the world, so you have to always pick the right joke, the right story, right, the right different type of stories to ensure that the person you're going to talk to, they will get that, and it will create some kind of chemistry to start a big conversation. So I think for us, I always call sales more like it's a really art, and I think if you're really good artist in sales, and artist means, let's say, you can shuffle around, you can be flexible between the regions, so that's what makes you successful in sales. In our company, so we don't do a lot of experiments to do a lot of sales from Ukraine, because it's very difficult to find people that will feel that culture. Usually we hire our sales force in the countries that we sell our services to. If we do sales in US, we hire people in US. If we do sales in Israel, we hire people in Israel. And the funny part that sometimes, let's say, if you hire a person in US, it might be difficult to sell that guy those services, let's say, in Israel. Different culture, different expectation, I always say different jokes. So for me, that's how we operate, and definitely in this case, cross-culture communication becomes a key in this particular field.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to you, or to all of you, with that mingling part in a second, or small talk, if this is what I call it. But I'll ask Iryna first. What's her take on that part, on sales?
We are definitely, all of us, observing, let's say, evolution of sales techniques or methods, how we reach our customers. And technology, of course, boosted up, for sure. So I remember when several years ago, Microsoft, I worked at that time in Microsoft, and I was managing territory from Belarus to Mongolia, so you can understand different in time zones and difference in culture, of course. and Microsoft decided to build insider sales hub in Ireland. So, and it was like corporate, let's say, blueprint, and Microsoft as a very innovative IT company. They let's say they were like kind of pioneering all this way of reinvented model of insider sales engine. I should call it like that. And they decided, yes, so all our insider sales gonna be sitting in Ireland. And all my countries, they were like killed by this news, because they said no, no way those gonna fly. So no one from Ireland will able to sell to, let's say, Azerbaijan or Belarus or Mongolia. Yeah, and it was really kind of shocked situation. And then we decided, okay, look, guys, so let's see what we can do. And yes, we of course started and put mandatory conditions that people who will serve as insider sellers in Ireland, they will need to have kind of at least bilingual language capability, English and Russian. So then, of course, we excluded at least Mongolia from the coverage, because even so simple, small details, time difference, basically kill this concept completely, because the person from Ireland will have only, let's say, 4 hours to serve Mongolian customer. That's it. And last but not least, what we did, we convinced management that they need to send those insider sellers who will cover those country into the country to meet, let's say, customer first, face to face, to build those connections. And basically, we also keep it, as far as I remember, during the year. So they comes once per quarter to the countries, to the land, to the field, and they, let's say, meet with those customers. So with those, let's say, combination, with those, tailoring approach to specific of those country, we basically succeed. So at the end of first year of those model operation, everyone understood that it can work, so it can bring results. So, and I think that's always when we talking about those new things, which is by human nature, all those new approach is, it might be frustrated from the beginning. It might be, kind of rejected from the beginning, but it is important to find the right way. It is important to find the right turning, how to land it. So that's why for me, from that story, so I now never afraid to to put it, this is kind of new way of selling to even very, very, conservative countries like Eastern Asia countries. They historically sell only by, kind of personal connection, by face-to-face meetings. So step by step, you can evolve and you can start to use all those new technology techniques or sales methods.
Okay, so let's be also a bit practical, and especially for those smaller companies who are looking to expand, for example, from Ukraine to all over the world, who are trying to acquire clients who do not necessarily have offices or representatives in the US or UK or Scandinavia or Israel. What kind of tips would you all give them to try and actually sell something in those markets?
Andrew, it's a great question, and I was thinking about this because we didn't have representatives in the USA or in Europe or in Israel, and we are about 700 people company. And in the very beginning, I was dealing with the sales on my own, and we are located here in Ukraine, and yeah, it's basically a times difference, and it's we know difference in culture. However, I had a couple of attempts to move to the USA, for instance. I lived in Boston, but I failed to find some people from Boston, from the USA. So I came back and realized that what we do, it relates to customer experience. And to sell customer experience to other companies, we're supposed to have this DNA, this customer, let's say, approach in our DNA. So that's why I decided a couple of years ago just to promote some people from those positions to a business development representatives. And right now we have a team of business development representatives in-house, and we sell to clients all over the world. Currently, we have clients from 28 countries. So it's basically just probably read some information about difference, of course, cultural difference, and then just try, because I'm sure that if you would try, and the next attempt will be better than the previous one, so just do not give up. That's it. And of course, if we're talking about, for instance, Israel, then just to stay flexible and agile, to respond to some clients from Israel or from Dubai, let's say, on Sunday, that's fine. Or let's say to have some calls with the clients from Australia or from San Francisco at 3 a.m. In the morning. That's also fine if you would like to win those deals.
So it is doable, you're saying?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, like, I spent my life like having calls at 3 a.m. Or just answering some emails at on Sunday. So yeah, if you would like to close those deals, then yeah, you can just accept those, let's say, rules, play by those rules, and then just try.
Fantastic approach. Alex, Iryna, any tips for those smaller companies that would like to reach out to different markets and get clients there?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely for the small company, probably will be very expensive to go, to Europe or United States and really hire people over there. And to be honest, we try different people, expensive, less expensive. It's not always, because sales, again, is not something if you hire, even if the guy was selling billions of dollars in the last 20 years, it doesn't mean if you hire that guy today, he's going to be in the business, right? It's not always like black and white. But again, for the small company, probably the best way to start, build some sales operation, business development, let's say in Ukraine, and be able to sell it from here. Again, for us, if you look from our business, again, fortunately or unfortunately, 70% of our clients are coming from word of mouth and recommendations. And I believe in the B2B business, the relationship you build with your existing clients and the reputation you build around your brand will still will be probably, it's my personal opinion, about 70% of your success in sales. And then you got sales and marketing and some PR activities, right, that bring other potential opportunities or leads to your business. That's one. The second thing also, let's say, it also depends what kind of client you're looking for. Again, if it's a small company, you're gonna probably looking for small clients, maybe startups, small mid-sized business. In that case, the marketing or doing sales from here could be sufficient enough. When you get to the point that you want to start to sell to big clients, like enterprise clients, then again, in my personal opinion, my personal experience, that it's getting more difficult to get that through email communication, let's say sales being in Ukraine. So in that case, probably we need to look for partners or bring very experienced senior business development people, let's say in a region, that will be able to bring you, open the door at least to those big enterprise clients. Because usually, for example, again, if you look like from different regions, like in Israel, it's all about word of mouth. And sometimes when people ask me, let's say, how we end up to have so many Israeli clients, most of the time I say, let's say, in Israel, let's say it's like a circle of trust. If you're inside of the circle of trust, you get referrals every week. because that's how they mostly operate. So even if they call you and they ask you who you're working currently with Israeli clients, you bring a couple names, that's good enough for them to close the deal. So that's how they operate. In US market, it's a little bit different. If you go to enterprise business, it's a long, it's a long journey, and for them it's very important. If they get any kind of references, feedback, the company working with. So it's a different approach to the business development sales. So again, to summarize my story in this, I think that for small clients, you can build the sales and marketing team in Ukraine, but again, be able to feel and the difference between like country to country, region to region, and provide very quality content to attract attention of that particular client. When you get to a certain level, you can afford to bring people in regions. I would recommend doing that as well, and maybe balance that between the maybe sales team, marketing team, let's say in Ukraine, and let's say biz dev team in the region where you sell your product or services.
Okay, perfect. And Iryna, what's your take on that?
Very well aligned with Alex. So I think it doesn't matter, sorry, big or small company you are. So first of all, who is your customer? Understanding who is your customer, and also understanding specific culture, specific how to get those customer in on the table. I mean, to take it. It's just matter to be, let's say, smart and brave. So I do not see any obstacle to build, a core team in Ukraine and sell globally, really. So that's for me really matter of how you do that.
Yeah, Daria's example is perfect here, that it does work. On that note, actually, I mentioned this email that I got a couple of hours ago. I'll quote it right now. So, hi, Andrew. I work for an outsourced software company from Ukraine and help technology companies from UK gain access to the most talented engineers in my country. Want to jump on a quick 10-15 minute intro call this or next week? So either myself or my CTO could share our ideas with you. And this is from Julia. And I won't quote her last name, but it sounds foreign. It doesn't sound Ukrainian. I would say it could be American or British. And there is a US phone number there. So it's not an uncommon situation that you have companies from Eastern Europe, and not necessarily only from Ukraine, that are actually sitting in Ukraine, but have an American phone number, and they sort of pretend that they are based in the US. Do you think that this is a good approach? Does that work in your opinion?
I think if I start, I would say most of the time it's a perception of feeling that if you have a US number, or you kind of change your name or last name to some more American, it will help you to sell. I think today we're talking about Ukraine. Ukraine is a very known market globally about what they good at, right? Providing outsourcing services or anything else. So I think if you're talking to intelligent client, I don't think you need to hide that you call him from Ukraine.
Exactly.
And, because eventually he's going to find out anyway that, because again, phone number and the last name today doesn't really change anything. It's all about what you sell, how you sell. And I think when you get to the point that, for example, the client will arrive to Ukraine, you should be able to show that what you sell actually exists. So for me, even for our company from the beginning, even though like we are a US company, we never hide that our headquarters of US company based in Kyiv. So we don't hide that. I don't think it's something you have to hide. Maybe sometimes you have to be even proud. Because again, Ukraine today is very known.
I would be proud, definitely.
Yeah, Ukraine is very known, and it's not like 20 years ago, people would ask in the United States, what is Ukraine? Because no one even knew that Ukraine exists. Today, it's for different reasons, it's a very known country, and I think again, if you do business in Ukraine, it's like for example, you do business in China or Germany or any other country. There's no reason to hide that. You have to be very open and be able to sell to your potential client why he would use Ukraine, why he would go to Ukraine to do business with that service provider. So for me, I think it's a mostly perception than helping you to sell.
Yeah, of course.
I totally agree with that, and I strongly support this approach because I think that our region has a lot to offer and a lot to be proud of. So let's not try and hide and pretend that we are somebody else. Daria.
Yeah, so if Julia knew that she'll become, or let's say, a star of today's event, I'm sure that she would prepare a better email. From my opinion, I think that right now having the USA number, it's totally fine because many companies use VoIP phone numbers or different digital, let's say, approaches of how to reach clients or how to basically be reached as well. So that is why the USA number, the UK, Ukrainian number, I don't think that here's, it matters. I think that it's more about maturity, like how the company is mature and like what exactly, as Alex mentioned, they would like to sell and how they would like to attract your attention. However, there are also some, I think, negative connotation of Eastern Europe countries, of, let's say, Indian sales representatives. And that is why small companies, they'd like to take away from those negative connotation and maybe to make you thinking or feeling that they're closer to you, that they're, like, say, with the English or British or American last name, and that's just, let's say, an attempt. But I'm sure that from time to time this sales approach will be changing as well, because I'm sure that if the company is small, this company was founded by CTO or by developer, and probably this person didn't have enough sales experience yet. So within some time, this person will earn more experience and will change the sales approach. And by the way, I'd like also to add to the previous question about tools and about like having representatives in different countries. I just recall one great tool for small companies. It's roadshows. And I used to use this tool before COVID-19. I combined different conferences with roadshows. When I had a lot of meetings, like, let's say, 2 weeks booked with different meetings in different countries, and I had different negotiations with potential clients. That's also a help if you don't have, let's say, resources to hire person in every country that you operate, to also to win some good clients, because then you also can meet them face to face.
Iryna, anything to add here?
Look, so on this particular example you bring, Andrew, just very pragmatically, about surname, I also think it has no mean to, change your surname, if it not help to build effective communication. When I work in Samsung, it was a long time ago, but I remember that in corporate list it was 100 Lee Kun Lee. So, and it was impossible to find real exact Lee Kun Lee which you needed. So that's why Korean folks, they put some nicknames which help identify them or position them, like Alex or Jim or whatever. So everyone knows that, okay, this is Alex Lee, right? So it helps. It helps positively to communicate and build relationship, right? So it helps. And the same, call number. If American number will help you, will be more convenient to reach you for your potential customer, that's fine. But if it is just, kind of to pretend to be that, okay, we are like super cool, and so if it is not, let's say, true, so I don't think so. You need to go for this strategy, because transparency, trust you can build only to be authentic. So to
Mm-hmm.
build on your stretch, to be very transparent who you are, and build on your and leverage on your strong points. So you don't need to hide it behind of some fancy surname or some, I don't know, kind of cool phone numbers.
Thank you. That's a very good point, and I think being authentic is very important here. We already have quite a few questions. I'm going to ask them in a second, but do send more. We are looking for more. Alex at some point mentioned this art of mingling or small talk, as I call it. How do you think we can learn it? Because obviously, like we're going to talk about these examples, but in the UK, for instance, of course you have to, when you meet someone, you have to say, how are you doing? Or, how are you? You have to welcome them. It's not that we're getting straight to the point. There has to be this small talk about weather and a bunch of other things. Whereas, for example, in countries like Poland, or Ukraine, we want to go get straight to the point and start talking about business. So how to match those two and how to learn the art, because I think it is an art of mingling or small talk. What's your tips? What's your advice here?
Go ahead.
Since I mentioned mingle, let me comment on that. And I guess
go for it. Yeah.
No, I always the small talk versus big talk or mingling. I always bring the example when you go for a date. When you go for a date, yeah, the first day you have, right, you have to create some kind of attractiveness for the big talk afterwards, right? Mm-hmm. So I think in business, very similar. So the art of the mingle, especially, so for example, in US, because once you mingle, so either that will open up opportunity for you for the big talk, or it will not. And I think when I was in US and when I saw the senior management that I used to work with, the way they do stuff, it's not that easy because you have different people. You have to come up with a topic. You have to come up with the mingling. You have to find the right joke, so to let the people open up. And because like they never seen you before, they want to make sure that they get open and they start to talk to you. So I think it's crucial. And I think from our experience, when we travel, go to different conferences, meet different people, it's I believe it's an art, and people that have that art, they're more successful in selling. So that's when people say how to sell. Sometimes I say selling is not about to learn how to sell. It's most of the time I would say you actually got born with that gene to be able to sell. And it's like, and I think it's very crucial. And when it comes to hiring those salespeople, either in Ukraine or anywhere else, so you need to find the people that really good at mingling, talking to the people, and get straight to the point. And of course, in a different country, different region, it's a different aspects of mingling or talks. Like I said, again, if we go back to Israel, they would not prefer to mingle with you about just like random discussion. They want to be, again, I use that word in Hebrew, they want to be tachlis with you. Straight to the point, right? Mm-hmm. What do you do? How much do you charge? Stuff like that. If you go to US, they're not going to talk to you about anything. So you have to mingle first, build some relationship, and if they feel there's some chemistry relationship, then you might follow up again for the big talk, for the big discussion.
Well, but then what you're saying is actually that that small talk is becoming the big talk because during small talk you already know that this is perhaps someone who you want to do business with.
Right.
Isn't that so?
And again, and the art of your small talk will open up the door for the big talk. If you did a good short talk, if you did good mingling, then that will open opportunity for you to have a big talk. It's like a date. If you go the first day, you didn't create any attraction, then probably you have very less chances, let's say, for tomorrow to follow up, right, and go for the date again. So I think it's very similar, I think.
Daria, Iryna?
That's cool stuff for me. For sure, like it works. Two key let's say, tips. First of all, it should be very well prepared. So I don't think so. Just very, let's say, kind of what is the weather, how he's doing, and it is enough to say, okay, that's the good small talk, right? So my personal experience when I prepare for, let's say, important first meetings. So I really work hard, and I ask my team to bring me insights to understand, let's say, more person interests. I don't know, let's say sport, golf, whatever. So as tailor it, you will able to, build this, prepare this small talk. It's better. And I think on my experience, it works in very different culture and in very different geos with very different peoples, because we all human. So, and for me, I can't remember the case when it was like useless. So I think it's definitely cool stuff, and it's good to invest in first meeting, in creating, in building those small talks. Yes.
Daria, anything to add here?
Of course, yeah. And I think that small talk is basically a big deal. However, if we're talking about conferences, there is a problem when people occupied by other people. So it means that sometimes you just need to go straight to the topic. But again, you should feel when you should go straight to the topic, when you should start small talk, when you should start a long, big talk, and then probably, let's say, transfer it into the deal eventually. However, from my experience, me and my company, we are not overselling our services, whether it's small talk or it's a big talk. We really want to know the person, hobby, lifestyle, the personality, and to stay more human, just to make sure that we will have then a long relationship with this company or with this person. If we're talking about companies and about small talks, eventually people are selling to other people. So not companies are selling to other companies. So that is why what I'm sure about 100% that it's always about, like positive attitude, about energy. And then you will find a way how to communicate in a small talk or in a big talk with the potential person that you've never met before.
But there might be a challenge because, with certain nationalities, it works differently because, if you have, for example, let's say Poles or Ukrainians, when they meet someone for the first time at a conference, they would immediately say, oh, I'm, for example, the CEO of this company, or I'm the salesperson of at this company. Whereas in other nationalities, they would just say, oh, hi, I'm Mike, and that's it. They don't say who they actually are. So you never know whether it's actually worth speaking to them or from the from a sales perspective, obviously.
It's true. However, all my meetings where I was focusing on personality became a very good deals, even not with this exact person, but with a friend or with a friend of friend. And it's just not about, selling here and now. It just probably this person knows the another person who will be your ideal, let's say, client profile. And it's really, people feel when you would like to just read your name and whether you're a CEO of some company and sell you right now and right here your products. And it's annoying.
Correct.
Right now, I think, especially in 21st century with all this technology, we want to feel empathy. We want to still feel that we don't looking for, like money here. We first of all looking for network, for quality network. And it's exactly about personality. And of course, if you're not will sell here your services, you will eventually, it's my experience, you'll eventually win something bigger.
I just want to add couple
Alex,
words
yes.
here. So basically, just going back to the conference, and I think what I've also seen when people coming from Ukraine, Usually when you go to the conference, let's say, for example, if you meet like people from US, they're all very nice. They're all willing to speak to you. But usually the conference, nothing gets sold. Usually what in the conference, what you get sold, the relationship they want to build. And then it might take maybe a year or two. If you do that properly, you keep the relationship going, meet that person again at the next conference, maybe send an email to say happy birthday or happy anniversary. So you keep going, build a relationship, and eventually, it could be in 2 months, it could be in 2 years, that will pay it off. And I think what I've seen, when I was going to the conference, people come to, they give you the business cards, and then basically like in 3 days, you get back to the office, and you start to get emails, basically saying, let's say we met, we discussed that proposition, here's our offer, here's da. It's like, guys, hold on, I only saw you for like 2 minutes. I don't even know who you are. Yeah, you're very nice guys, but it's not about to make a deal, make a business. So I think that's also the culture difference that when you meet someone at the conference, you build a relationship.
Correct.
And you're not selling anything at that point.
Yeah. That is a very good point. I have to admit, I've seen a number of different cases of people who were trying to just go to a conference and come back with a number of deals.
Because basically, I think it's KPI of their hats, let's say of the CEOs or their managers. But it's also a fun fact that I just closed recently a company that I've been in touch for 4 years. And I think like almost
there you go.
my visits to that country right now, it really pays me because persistence is the key, and I'm really happy. And also I think if we're talking about conferences, of course, preparation, you're supposed to prepare before you come to the conference, and basically to have already a schedule, agenda, or a list of people that you would like to meet. It's not about like randomly coming and just saying hi. Yeah, of course it works sometimes, but then you're supposed to make your homework as well. And it's cool when you are at conferences and you have your second day, I think on most of the conferences, and then you have the after party. And I think the most businesses are also having their start of cooperation basically on these outer bodies.
So the bottom line, build the relationship, and then business will come after.
Agree.
That's a very good point. So on that note, I would like to sort of transfer ourselves to a slightly different topic, which is more about the situation when you're actually already working with a client. So you've got the account, you've managed to persuade them to work with you, and there is a situation when you sometimes have to give feedback to how the project has been delivered or is being delivered, and what happens then. So I remember a session that I moderated, I think last year. There were two guys. One represented a company from Poland, and the other one was actually a guy from a British company, but originally from South Africa. And we were talking about, how to actually say, "Oh, guys, you actually screwed up." And for that person in the UK, it was really difficult to say, he was trying to say, well, maybe, you could have improved it a little bit. And, and obviously by the polls, the way it was taken was that, okay, we could have done it better, but, it was fine. But in fact, they basically screwed up. So what are your experiences here, and how this communication part works in that area?
Maybe Iryna?
So let me take from my side. Feedback is super important. Not only, when you work in the project already for, let's say, for a customer. Also, feedback is important when you managing your people. And it is also, there are a lot of things you need to take into consideration to deliver the feedback. So my experience, probably it's very naive and simple, but I think that's the only way it can, let's say, work as smoothly as possible, considering all variety or specific cultural specific. I mean, relationship between let's say you and customer. So that's the managing expectation from the beginning. So I think it is very constructive to sit down on the beginning of, let's say, project or whatever, and agree. Okay, so this is what we expect, and if and there are some triggers when we really want to, observe together and honestly evaluate them. Do we like on track, or like something wrong, or crap is happening, or whatever? So I think it can help a lot when you agree from really beginning. I don't know if it is formally signing in contracts. It's probably also too extreme, but at least informally to build this, okay guys, so this is something which we not something, this is exactly what we expect in those period of times, and let's measure it together, and let's be very honest to each other what we like and what we don't like. So in majority of cases it should help, whatever specific cultural specific on the customer side or third party sides we are dealing with. So that's in my experience, and of course yeah, that's my experience tell me given feedback, it is super sensitive topic, and it is a like sort of art of giving feedback. So and yeah, so and you like you should be experienced to give feedback. So that's not easy stuff, or not serious stuff you just can um, just do your way, because you really can damage let's say everything. You can damage projects, like you can hurt the people or whatever. So that's very serious topic. So and yeah, for me that's whatever you are like um, whatever we are talking about giving feedback. So that's first of all to agree how it should be, how it will be during the project, and again to be very respectful and to let's say learn the art of giving this feedback.
Okay, thank you. Daria, Alex, anything to add here?
Yeah, let me just add here as well. So I think I always say most of the time in today's world, most of the businesses, they're doing similar stuff. Either it's a service or product. I think what makes them different is how they do business. And I think the expectation and feedback is one of the key elements of the culture of the company. Especially let's say in the service business, that's a key. And I know from my experience when I was on the client side, it's not always about that you can do some programming or something else. Most of the time it's about to understand the expectation of the client. Because you might do, and some even like do more than you were asked to do. And it's very crucial that that you understand the expectation of the client, and B, you provide constant feedback. Because again, when it comes to culture, what I also learned here is that, let's say for example, in US, I'm sure maybe in UK as well, when you send email, you will get constant response, kind of saying something, I got it, I'll come back to you, and it will take me a couple of days to get things resolved. Some feedback. That's what people would expect. And when I came here, sometimes I felt that you send email, it doesn't mean, let's say, people didn't want to do it, right? But in the culture, right, it doesn't mean, let's say, I have to respond right away. And feedback is very important, because if you don't get the right expectation and don't provide constant feedback, you might start to irritate the client. And sometimes you might provide the best services as you can. You can do very quality programming. That's the hard part of the business. But if the expectations are not met, And the feedback you don't get very constantly, and you have to kind of micromanage and follow up an email that you send to the company. That will irritate your client, and eventually, if that might even like make the client to make the decision to quit, not because you were not doing good programming, is because he was so much irritated and tense to deal with the expectation and the feedback. So I think, again, expectation and feedback, I believe, again, especially in the service business, I believe it's a key to be successful, and companies should spend a lot of time and efforts to set that in their culture of the company to make sure that really match the, again, culture of the country of clients that you're working with.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. And Daria, would you like to add something here?
Sure. So basically, at our company, we always try to turn feedback into the feed forward. We have our questionnaire, and we have some certain points when we ask our clients about their feedback, and we even can tell that, okay, we'd like to hear your feedback. We turn it into the feed forward. We want to improve if there are some areas for improvements. And about expectation, we always try to make clear clients' expectations in the beginning. So basically, we are not overselling our services. So we just want to make clear in the beginning what a client has expectations, and then just to make sure that we probably won't be able to meet them in the first month because we need to get each other better. And then, but in 2 months, in 3 months, our communication, our performance will be much, much better. So here, that's why we have this feed-forward form, and I think it really works. However, if sometimes, let's say, something doesn't work, and because we are all human, right, and we can make some mistakes, I think that honesty is very also crucial for every business. And after honesty, if something happened, let's say, that you know that, okay, client probably will be upset with this kind of result, and you can just take responsibility on your own. You can just say, excuse me, explain everything, and try to solve this situation. So you just stay transparent as possible and react to, even be proactive to every situation, whether it's good or bad.
So try to anticipate how the potential client might actually react to that.
Even sometimes you can just prevent something, you know, you can just feel, okay, probably you won't be able to meet some kind of results for take it into account different reasons, but just try to also inform your client about this. So your client will be having this information and you will prevent this problem.
Very good tip. Thank you. So before I continue with my own questions, I will now look at the very long list of questions that I have received. So I'm going to pick the most interesting one. And actually, Daria, there is one for you. You started using bots for tech support. Does it help you reach your business goals? What do you think about the future of bots in tech support and perhaps communications?
Are we talking about chatbots?
Yeah, I would think so, yes.
Okay, so yeah, we have Chatbot Builder at our company that our clients can use together with our services. What I think about having them, I think sometimes they can simplify our people's workflow. However, it just can answer very simple questions. So if your product is complex, if your product is expensive, you won't be able to use just chatbots. But if you're a startup, you can have combination of chatbots and human force.
I personally am not a huge fan of chatbots, but, well, maybe others are. Another question to Daria, but I think it could work for all of you. How do your team prepare customer support representatives for these cultural differences? Do you create some kind of list of do's and don'ts?
Thanks.
I think it's a very good question. Thank you, whoever asked this question.
Thank you so much for this question. And we basically use different learning management systems at our company, and we have different training. So we have training how to work with customers' objections, how to work with different type of clients, and basically we have some general also training. If we're talking about the biggest market that we work with. So we also, for instance, created some training on the difference in channels, how to communicate with clients via phone or via email, let's say. So yeah, it really depends on also our clients' requirements. Sometimes our clients are so eager to provide training on their own, so we're just always okay with that.
Alex and Iryna, do you have any tips to the person who asked this question about how to prepare customer support reps to deal with different cultural differences?
Yeah, so let me put it in a search perspective. Not limited just preparing exact support customer for something, right? We're doing don'ts, which is I think more higher level or deeper level, whatever. So I think for each company, whatever we are talking about, big or small, it is important to understand beauty of diversity. And it is diversity of customer you have with the, let's say, cultural difference, diversity of team you have, which also, let's say, should be benefit to your business development. And diversity always come with inclusion, with respect. And that's super important, not only just prepare your pitch for customer or let's say representative with doing don'ts. It is important to build real fundamental culture in your company, how to respect diversity, how to use these do's and don'ts, not just in particular cases, but as a, let's say, whole, culture of your company. So that's, I think, very important, starting with this fundamental culture building.
Okay, Alex, anything to add?
I think I would just add, just maybe in simple words. I guess it doesn't really matter which clients you're working with in which region. I think from the service provider, I think the three major, I would say, items that you have to use regardless. Either you work with Israel, US, Europe. I think every single client will accept that openness. You have to be open with your client, transparent with your client. You have to be committed to what you do. And I think those three items basically, regardless of the culture, regardless of the region, that will be appreciated by any client, because that's basically what makes the that relationship very healthy.
And make it work. Okay, I have a question from Dennis here. Based on your experience, what are some of the most common examples of cross-cultural misunderstandings? What misunderstandings have you had due to cultural differences? So let's give us give us a couple of examples here. What you have had to go through in your career. Some of the funny ones, some of the scary ones. Iryna is smiling, so do you want to start?
First, which is come to my mind, that's the language. That's, of course, I worked with in Korean company, I worked for American company, and it is always, how would say, kind of different English. that's always, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's create some, let's say, obstacle to understanding. And it is also style of delivering the message. It's also sometimes it's fun or obstacle, because for Slavic countries, we all like to talk some stories, to kind of to sing a song, and for Western people, they really appreciate crisp, sharp message. And So and yeah, for my current people, half my current people has a, let's say, this communication improvement of communication skills in their development plan. And it is also still, kind of also topic for me, how to match those, kind of expectation for different style and minds and everything. So, and yes, I think indeed language and way of delivering the message, that's on my experience is that's always
That's the funniest
tough.
part.
Yes.
I have to say that I really like getting messages or emails from people in Eastern Europe, particularly from Ukraine and Belarus. Sometimes when I get those emails, there's quite a few exclamation marks at the end of a sentence. And, for someone in Western Europe, it feels like someone is screaming at me with,
Yes.
with all those exclamation marks or 5 question marks, like, what on earth are you doing? So it's really an interesting experience, I have to say. Alex and Dasha.
Yeah, I think I can just came to my mind. It was basically like a month ago. It actually came from my existing client, and that it goes back again to the sales approach and the way you communicate. And he sent me the email, and the email also was from some Ukrainian company selling the services. And when you look at the email, it was like 4 different type of emails. So the first email was basically, again, hi, my name is John. I represent this company. We offer this kind of services, which was kind of okay. And of course, the client hasn't responded. Then the second email came in as a follow-up, was more or less okay also. The client hasn't responded. Then the third email come up as a follow-up. The client hasn't responded. And then the funny part was also, then the 4th email comes in with the subject. It's not usually like RE, just with the subject, goodbye. And when you read that when you read that email, was basically, subject was goodbye, then in the body of the email was that, we tried to reach you like 4 times. It seems, let's say, not interesting. At that point, I can only say you goodbye. And if you decide to work with us, you can call me back. My name is John. My phone number here, email is here. And but the funny part, I think that the guy didn't really mean to be rude, because if you say that maybe in Russian, goodbye, then до свидания, okay, it doesn't that rude. But if the person who speaks native language reads that, it's very rude to say goodbye, and second thing, it's very, I would say, unprofessional to say that, if you would be interesting, please call me back. So that's also comes to the cross-culture language difference, that sometimes you don't mean it, but the way you write the email, it sounds very rude, and sometimes sounds very unprofessional, which also creates some kind of, and it actually came in from not a small company, actually came from the, decent company. So it means, let's say that, that's definitely something you have to watch out and be very careful what kind of email you send out, but also be very careful if you do some kind of a PR activity or put any content outside of your company, you have to be very, very precise on how you do it. And that's why in our company, sometimes our PR department, they also take the PR agency from the country that we put that information to make sure that they can double check. Not because we cannot write English, to make sure that everything we do correspond to the native understanding of the language. So that was the kind of just recent funny story.
Daria?
Yeah. Obstacle that I can remember right now, it's basically how we communicate with our potential clients from Japan, for instance, because we don't have any clients from Japan yet. And I think it's just because also of a cultural difference, because all this super politeness, and you never know what else you can basically adjust in your proposal, because whatever you ask, you always will receive the answer that everything is fine, everything is good, okay, but please wait. That is why I think for us it's the biggest obstacle to enter to Asian markets. However, we have people who they speak Japanese, they speak Chinese, but we don't have clients from Japan. I think this is, for me, the biggest obstacle to read their mind and to understand like, okay, so what should I do? Because I've never been in those environments.
Okay. I have another question here. Could you share any life hacks on effective communication to keep your departments on the same page when they're distributed across time zones and locations? Anyone wants to take this one?
I will start. So if we're talking about different locations and different time zones, first of all, it's great to split team into smaller teams. And then to have a rule to have at least some sync calls once a day, like for 5 minutes. You can call it also a morning coffee when you're just imagining like how you go to the kitchen, you prepare a coffee for yourself, and then you can just talk about all the, let's say, very common things like or news. If we're talking about different departments, so at our company we play games, for instance, when we are offline. We love playing games, and we love to play. We have 3 different types of games, and I'll tell you about them maybe later on. And it really also make a better rapport between different departments. And the third thing that I would recommend, it's like our life hack, it's make cross-departmental meetings, where you can also make different teams, give them one task and ask them in 1 month, let's say, prepare some kind of presentation where one department will tell other departments what they do. Because we had this experience previously, and I figure out that sometimes, like different departments, they even don't know exactly what our colleagues are doing during the working day, and it really helped to see the picture from the helicopter view and even become more efficient. So if you can have these offline meetings, it's great. If you can't, so just probably have all these daily checkups, some games, or even to have to read books together and then discuss this information later on.
Okay, thank you. Iryna, Alex, any tips here?
Yeah, I think, in our company, I always use, I think it was 2 years ago, it was the interview of the former CEO of LinkedIn, and they asked me a question, how you manage so many emails, because you have a company has, I don't know, like 20,000 people, and the answer was, let's say, I don't write too many emails. And I think sometimes we see in our company, even let's say when people open up like a ticket in Jira, instead of basically, and then they start to put a lot of kind of in the comments, they start to communicate in the ticket, going back and forth. And then especially if you're talking about email, you start to have people in CC, and then people from CC also jump in to this conversation, and basically start to spend like a couple of days to go back and forth on a certain topic, where they can basically kind of, and they all sit on the same floor, where they can basically meet in the conference room, pick up the topic, and resolve the topic basically in 5 minutes. But they continue to keep emails, which takes a lot of time. So I think as far as a life hack, I think I would say that, again, especially in IT business, we know that, again, at least in our company, people in IT don't really like to read emails. And I think one thing what you should do, you should really find out and use the instruments that people usually read. It could be email, maybe it could be Telegram channel. Sometimes we in our company we put TV in kitchen, even like lift halls, elevator halls, so to translate the communication either to video content or like digital content. And but again, I think it's one of the challenges, and as I mentioned before, one of the good measure that I took from one of my former CEO back in the United States. Let's say the best measure to measure your communication efficiency is to ask your cleaning lady if she knows what you do today, what the company does in general. And I think it's a challenge, but I think you should really look for instruments that people really use. That's number one. Number two, again, if you're a small company, you don't spread across like multiple locations globally, you just sit in one office, try not to send a lot of emails, which takes a lot of time to type. Just try to get people even let's say not face to face, even like through Zoom, and talk to them, right? Get things resolved and move forward.
That might be a little bit challenging right now, but it's a very good tip. Iryna, anything to add here?
Yes, so I probably also will be very practical and just to share my experience, because indeed it is hard to manage multi-regional, multi-time zone people. So but it is important to do that. So nobody should feel that they run the show alone, or somehow they detach from the let's say whole team. So I think importance of those kind of bonding those different teams, small one. If even sometimes I had just one person serving the like market itself. I had a guy with Mongolia when he was only one who didn't speak Russian among all my kind of multi-regional CIS team. So, and we decided to run the call in English just because of
One person.
this one person. And I think it is important. It is important to do not compromise with that. So it is important to understand, to find first of all the common agenda for all people. It is important to engage them all, and it is much more harder than you are like running face-to-face meeting, because you can see the eyes, you can see the emotions, but when you are on virtual meetings, sometimes people do not want to switch their
The camera.
videos, cameras. Yeah. So and the art of let's say running those calls, asking the question, to put some fun, it is incredibly important. So, and it is once again no compromise with small details when you have those calls. So if you have those calls always, for example, for the and it is for some region, it is always like 3 or 2 a.m. That's terrible. So they feel themselves, kind of really that's not the case. So you need somehow to do that in
compromise.
Yes, in respect of the different people.
Okay, perfect. So I have literally two more questions, but with one, I would like you to answer very, very briefly. So there was one question related to hiring people from different countries and having any fears related to that. But I also wanted to kind of combine this question with my question related to managing multicultural environments or teams. Do you have any tips here when it comes to managing a multicultural team?
Very briefly, two statements from my side, Andrew. That's
okay.
Yes, that's the cool stuff, because I believe I'm a big fan of diversity. So you need to hire from different country, from different anything. So respect and working with the unconscious bias. So that's simple. Sounds like it's simple, but there is very big work behind. First of all, for a hiring manager. So and that's like every leader, every hiring manager should learn how to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Alex, Daria, any tips for managing multicultural teams?
Yeah, I just can briefly add, it's just to have a rapport, to have connection, like probably phone calls, Zoom calls with these people that are abroad, and to make sure.
But what if they are? Sorry, what if they are in the same place? Because you might. I mean, it's increasingly more common that you actually hire people from different countries, even in Eastern Europe. It doesn't have to be, elsewhere.
Yeah, then just to remember about tolerance, and we had a case, we have a couple of Muslim guys working at Support Rep, and when we noticed that they took some breaks to pray, we managed to buy some mats for them, so they can use them during these breaks. And I think that if we
Very good idea.
yeah, and we used to. I mean, like, because we have international team, we have multilingual team. We use English, and it's totally fine if your colleague, also Ukrainian, will start talking to you in English. Then you'll also show and demonstrate that you also thinking about your colleagues who, let's say, don't speak
So inclusion.
English, yeah. And yeah, just remember about this tolerance and kind of normalize this. So every person will feel that it's totally fine, and probably pay attention to details. So as we did with these Muslim guys, we just noticed that they have breaks to pray, and that we recommended, we offered them to get this mats for them. So, and I think they were super gratitude and happy that we also, found this approach for them.
Alex, any comments?
Not too much to add, but I would say, right, if you work in multicultural and as a company, either it's employees that sits in different countries or clients, I think as we discussed previously, you have to learn and learn the specifics of every single region, of every single country, because every single region is kind
And
of
respect that.
right, and just be able to adopt your corporate culture, not to only fit what you do, for example, in Ukraine, but basically adopt your corporate culture that spread across different location, across different regions. And I always say, when I was a client, and always now when I'm saying to my clients, once you make a decision to go abroad, don't expect that will be exactly the same. So going abroad will be always different. And if you made a decision to do that business, you have to adjust, adapt your company, your culture, your people to be able to work with the culture of people in the different countries.
All right. So at the very end of our conversation today, this is a question from Ina. Has cultural gap ever impacted your relationship with your client, and how would you remedy a culturally awkward situation? A very brief answer at the end.
I can start, and because we really had some, let's say, situation when we really cope with this situation, and it was a great lesson for all of us. So basically, we had some guys from the Philippines, and it was also our attempt to open up the office in the Philippines, and we failed. However, a couple of years ago, when we had this experience, we hired some Philippines, and we basically introduced them to our client, and it appeared that just like 2 weeks later, that the girl, she was on the 8th or 9th month of pregnant. Yeah, she was pregnant. And we were surprised. She didn't mention this during the interview. And we then realized that this is probably the huge gap between our culture. And after that, of course, we started asking girls about what kind of condition they are right now, to make sure that we will be able just to avoid this kind of situation with clients. But in the very end, we decided to focus and grow in Ukraine, and just close the office in the Philippines.
You can always remedy a situation. Iryna, and the tips to put out fires culturally imposed?
Look, so I was trying to think. So what I think, if something wrong happened, if you feel that you're appear in the situation when you screw up basically because of something, I do not see any other way just to back with some respectfully to take this as not only lessons, sometimes to say sorry or whatever. Sometimes even it's good to have a fun. I remember one story, my personal story. with one client. Also, he was like really strong Muslim guy, and he never meets with the ladies by hands. And I screw up like not even 2 times, 3 times, because it was so, it is for me, like I'm daily,
Natural.
yes. And I was on third time, I was, oh my God, so sorry. So that's but at the end we had like it was like fun, because he rejected to shake my hand, and probably yeah. So you can just, okay, this is a disaster, but if you're like look on the situation very openly, you always have a room to learn from your mistake, or just somehow fix it. Just be open, just be
Be yourself.
very, yes, again, absolutely.
Alex, the last word.
Yeah, just to add from my side, so definitely communication, most of the time, one of the main reason why you will fail with your client. And most of the time, when you actually fail on certain things, that's not the reason why client will fire you. Usually because we all fail, right? And it's normal. It's part of the business journey.
Yes.
We fail, we miss deadlines, we certain things, but that will not be the main reason unless you do that like 10 times in a row, right? But that will not be the main reason why the client will fire you. The reason the client will fire you will be based on how you actually communicate that failure to your client. If you do that proactively, you don't wait until last day of the deadline and say, sorry, we screwed up. Because usually when you screwed up, you kind of know that prior to the last day of the deadline. So I think definitely communication is the key to communicate with the client. And if you do that properly, if you do that with the constant feedback, the client will accept that, because we all fail. So that's why I always say, let's say that, again, the client will not fire you because of the failure. Client will fire you because of communication was not properly.
Fantastic. That's a very good point on, at the end of our conversation. So it's really interesting that we started by talking about, technology being sort of a universal language, but we've covered quite a few different topics and arrived at some conclusions that, we are also talking about art here. We're talking about, the art of mingling. We're talking about the art of giving feedback. And we're actually talking about the art of communication in the first place. Thank you very much for this amazing chat. It was a real pleasure. I hope our audience have learned quite a few bits and pieces from our experts. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good evening to all of you.
Thank you.